No, Brandon, please don't go, pleaded Chloe, her voice a raw whisper that barely cut through the buzzing tension in the garage. She clung to her boyfriend, the charismatic leader of their crew, a man whose hands, so tender on her face, were equally adept at slipping away with high-end vehicles. I just have a terrible feeling about today. If I mean anything to you at all, please. Brandon's embrace was a fleeting comfort, his strong hands cupping her face, his gaze searching hers. Chloe, everything I do, every risk I take, is for us. Today is the big one. If this goes off without a hitch, we're done. We disappear. Go somewhere far, far away. He held her eyes, a flicker of desperate hope in his own. Do you believe me? A chill ran down Sophie's spine, colder than the whisper of apprehension she had already felt. Rumours had been circulating within the group, growing uglier by the day. I think some of the guys are getting restless, starting to talk, she confessed, her voice barely audible. Just yesterday she'd overheard two of the crew's top mechanics, specialists in VIN switching, muttering in hushed tones. He's stashing away money, just for himself and her, one had grumbled, his voice low and resentful. And he's saying he's ready to drop everything for her. I don't like it. Why are the cops always nearby when we're planning a job? Yeah, I've noticed it too, the other had agreed, a dangerous edge in his tone. Too many close calls lately. It's because Brandon keeps taking these huge orders. We need to lay low. He's lost his mind. And this new route he cooked up, it's pure madness. That area is crawling with patrols. Chloe didn't wait to hear more. She pushed open the heavy garage door, stepping into the cavernous space where the men instantly fell silent. Their eyes, dark and suspicious, darted towards her from under furrowed brows, trying to decipher if she'd heard their damning conversation. Chloe, however, was a master of masks. She offered a casual smile, feigning ignorance as if she'd just arrived. How much longer do you guys need? She asked Brandon, her voice steady, betraying none of the tremor in her heart. Tell them about 2 hours, grunted Scar, the one-eyed mechanic whose nickname matched perfectly his intimidating presence. The other mechanic, Tank, nodded in agreement. Chloe relayed the message to Brandon, her brave facade still firmly in place before his final departure. Everything's going to be fine, don't worry, Brandon reassured her, pulling her onto his lap, burying his face into her shoulder. I'll be back, and we'll vanish from this place. Did you hide the money I gave you? She nodded, a silent promise. Choose anywhere you want to go. Anywhere we'll live. Chloe closed her eyes, picturing a life far removed from this gritty existence. Somewhere in a big city, she whispered dreamily, where bridges rise over the water, where fountains sparkle, and people are too busy to notice you. That's precisely where we'll go, he vowed, his voice husky with longing. All right, Chloe, I have to go. Wish us luck. Come back to me, she managed, fighting the traitorous shiver that threatened to expose her escalating dread. Brandon's farewell kiss was long, deep, a desperate attempt to seal their future. Then he was gone, stepping out into the unforgiving night. Chloe began to wait. He didn't return, not in a day nor two. The last heist had failed spectacularly. Someone had betrayed the entire crew. Part of the gang ended up behind bars. The authorities tried to implicate Chloe, but she had never been involved in the actual car thefts, nor the complex business of VIN switching or sales. She was just Brandon's girlfriend. After Brandon's disappearance, it became clear he was the linchpin, but he had simply vanished, as if swallowed by the earth. They pressed Chloe hard, hoping she would crack and reveal his whereabouts. Who else but his girlfriend would know where the leader was hiding? Everyone else in the crew pointed to you, Detective Miller stated, his voice devoid of emotion during her interrogation. You were his right hand, weren't you? No, Chloe retorted, her voice steady, despite the knot in her stomach. I was his fiancée, nothing more. She knew no one truly understood her intricate role in the gang, so she stood her ground. And I know no more than you about where he is. He just disappeared, the scoundrel. They tried to pressure her further, threatening her with real jail time, but they couldn't prove her direct involvement. Chloe knew there was no point in staying in the city. She retrieved the money Brandon had left her, a hidden stash for their dream future, and disappeared herself. The city of her dreams greeted her with a cold, insistent drizzle that seeped under her clothes, chilling her to the bone. Monumental and indifferent, it cared nothing for lost souls like her. Chloe stood on the train station square, her suitcase clutched in her hand. So this is you, my new home, she murmured softly to herself, a quiet sadness in her voice, and at that moment she understood. This city was the perfect place to disappear. Here she could lose herself in the faceless crowd and start completely fresh. Her first priority was finding a place to live. Wandering the streets alone with that much cash was either foolish or suicidal. Chloe was neither. She had foresight, a list of landlords' numbers already in her pocket. She called them all, finally settling on a small one-bedroom apartment in a quiet residential area, rented by an older woman. The terms suited her perfectly, and she headed straight there. Luck was on her side. The landlady lived in the same building, so Chloe didn't have to wait long. Nasty weather today, isn't it? Mrs. Henderson shivered by way of greeting, leading Chloe inside. Can't remember the last time I saw the sun for 3 days straight. Lived here for years and I still can't get used to this climate. Mrs. Henderson shivered, her words a blend of complaint and resigned acceptance. Chloe's new apartment was small but surprisingly cosy, a haven of quiet warmth against the perpetual drizzle outside. Chloe paid 6 months' rent in advance, watched her landlady shuffle out, and then, finally, she was utterly, completely alone. Well, hello there, new life, Chloe whispered to her reflection in the chipped bathroom mirror, a bittersweet sigh escaping her lips. The girl staring back had long auburn hair, framing a face still highlighted by a vivid, almost defiant make-up style. This needs to change, she thought, a firm resolve setting in. This was the face of Brandon's girl, the negotiator with a sharp mind and even sharper eyeliner. That girl had to disappear. She carefully unpacked her suitcase, tucking the bulk of Brandon's money into a nondescript package, leaving out just enough for immediate needs. The bag, a relic of her old life, was hidden away, and then, with a deep breath, Chloe stepped out. Her first stop was the bank, where she rented a secure deposit box. On her way back, she spotted a small, unassuming hair salon. An hour later, a different woman emerged. Hair shortened to a chic modern bob, dyed a soft, understated dark blonde, and her makeup light, almost ethereal. Now she blended in effortlessly. One would hardly recognise the former Chloe, the striking girl boss of the shadows. Passing a small, inviting cafe, a pang of hunger reminded her of her empty new refrigerator. She decided to grab a quick bite. As she waited for her order, a tense scene unfolded before her. "Hand in your uniform now and get out before I call the police." The cafe's manager, a stern-faced man, gripped a young waitress by the arm. "I didn't do anything," the waitress protested, her voice raw with desperation. But the manager simply pointed to a discreet camera she clearly hadn't known about. "We all wondered who was skimming from the till," he continued, his voice cold and triumphant. "And we had to get creative. The camera caught it all. Still going to deny it?" "Go to hell," the waitress spat, yanking her arm free, tearing off her apron and storming out. "Now I have to find a new waitress," the manager sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. That was the moment Chloe made her decision. A strange, impulsive spark ignited within her. "Excuse me," she began, approaching the manager, her voice calm and clear. "I accidentally overheard you have an opening. Could I perhaps try it out?" The man looked at her, his brow furrowed in surprise. He chewed on his lip for a moment, then scratched the back of his head. "Have you ever worked in this field before?" "No," Chloe admitted, her gaze unwavering. "But I'm a fast learner, and I really need a job." Her sincerity was palpable, a quiet strength that resonated. The manager, perhaps seeing something resilient in her eyes, agreed to give her a trial period. A month later, she was officially on the payroll. And so, Chloe's life began to flow, in a quiet, unremarkable rhythm. Sometimes, lying in her new bed, the past would creep in. Childhood memories of perpetually tipsy parents, hungry days, the cruel taunts of classmates. Then, meeting Brandon at 16, a charming auto mechanics student, moving into his apartment, believing it was her escape. "Chloe, I don't want to sound like a nag, but you need to keep studying," he had urged her, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "At least finish college. I won't push for a university degree." Chloe, swayed by his sincerity and her own yearning for something more, enrolled in a financial technical school. Despite her parents' limited horizons, she possessed a sharp mind, an excellent memory and quick wit. Studies came easily, and she graduated with honours. When Brandon assembled his crew and decided to venture into high-end car theft, Chloe tried to dissuade him. He'd just wave her off. "Chloe, you're a finance whiz. You know you can't get rich working a regular job. I want to show you the world, want you to have the very best." And Chloe, blinded by love and the promise of a glittering future, had succumbed. Remembering all this, her heart ached every single time. She couldn't forget Brandon, but his sudden disappearance had been a true blow. Anger and resentment still simmered within her, yet she couldn't eclipse the simple truth. She still loved him. Gradually, Chloe began to build new connections. At work, she performed so well that she was promoted to assistant manager. It was there she met her future husband. "Excuse me," a young man approached her, scanning the crowded dining room. "My secretary was supposed to book a table, but I see everything is taken." "Under what name was the reservation?" Chloe asked, opening her booking journal. "Leo Harrison." The guest was clearly agitated, a hint of desperation in his eyes. "I'm sorry, but we don't have that name. Perhaps your secretary made a mistake, or simply forgot. I'm afraid there's nothing available." Chloe closed the journal, her gaze softening as she looked at him. He looked genuinely pathetic, utterly disheartened. "Maybe it's for the best," he sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "If you'd like," Chloe offered, a small act of kindness blooming in her chest, "I could show you to the VIP area. A reservation just cancelled, and one private booth is open." "Thank you. You're very kind." Leo smiled, a genuine warmth finally breaking through his distress. "But I think my companion isn't coming, so I won't take up the space. Maybe someone else will be luckier than me." He bowed slightly and left. Chloe might have forgotten the encounter, but the next day Leo appeared again, this time during the quieter afternoon hours, when tables were plentiful. "Hello," he said, walking straight to her. "Do you remember me?" "Hello, of course. Did you manage to meet your companion?" Chloe was polite, not just professionally, but genuinely so. The man was rather handsome and had a pleasant demeanour. No, she had to leave town unexpectedly. It was supposed to be a business meeting, but—" He shrugged, a light smile playing on his lips as he looked at Chloe. "But something happened with her granny. We rescheduled." "Tell me," he asked suddenly, completely out of the blue, "could I invite you to dinner?" Chloe was taken aback, completely unprepared for the abruptness of the question. She almost declined, but then she paused, a new thought taking root. Life goes on, doesn't it? Brandon is gone, but I can't be alone forever. I need to build a life for myself. Besides, the clock is ticking. It's time to think about a family. "That was a little unexpected," Chloe finally said with a gentle, good-natured chuckle meeting his gaze. "And I'm currently at work, but if you were to invite me on my day off, I might not say no." And so Leo began to court her. It wasn't love at first sight, not in the fiery, all-consuming way she had once known, but Leo was easy. Leo wasn't a man who asked too many questions, which suited Chloe just fine. He simply was there, a steady, unwavering presence. She knew deep down that she might be using him in some fundamental way, a port in a storm, a quiet harbour after years of turbulent seas. But his quiet constancy offered a sense of stability that she hadn't realised how desperately she craved. It was a pleasant feeling, spending time with him, a peaceful rhythm settling into her days. Yet in the quiet corners of her mind, she knew her heart, fractured as it was, still held a raw, tender piece of itself for Brandon. 6 months later, Leo proposed. The proposal itself was sweet, earnest, lacking the dramatic flair of her past, but it felt solid, real. They married, a quiet ceremony that marked a turning point towards a life she hoped would be entirely her own. By then, Chloe knew Leo was a successful businessman, owning Velocity Customs, a high-end automotive customization and performance tuning shop. He'd built it from the ground up, starting with small repairs and bespoke modifications for local car enthusiasts, then expanding into a well-respected name for transforming luxury vehicles into unique, powerful machines. His shop had once been lauded for its innovative work, a go-to for collectors and those who craved automotive artistry. After the wedding, Leo insisted she stay home, manage their beautiful house, and prepare for a baby. He wanted a family, a stable, traditional life that resonated with his vision of domestic bliss. But that's where their carefully constructed world began to crack. Years passed, each marked by the silent ache of an empty nursery. The laughter of children, a dream they both held, remained just that, a dream. Chloe, ever practical, urged them to undergo a full medical examination. The results were a cruel twist of fate. She was perfectly healthy, but Leo faced significant issues. He was infertile. This news, delivered with cold clinical detachment, utterly crushed his self-esteem and slowly, insidiously, began to distance himself from his wife. "Leo, please don't be so upset," Chloe pleaded, her voice soft with compassion. "Maybe it's a mistake. Let's get a second opinion. Go to another clinic." She tried to comfort him, to bridge the growing chasm between them, but her efforts had the opposite effect. Leo's anger flared, raw and ugly, revealing a vulnerability he couldn't bear. "So I can be told again I'm not a man?" he snarled, his eyes burning with wounded pride. "No. Topic closed." From that day forward, Leo transformed. The kind, understanding man she'd married became irritable, harsh, his patience worn thin by his unspoken pain. He started disappearing, late nights turning into entire evenings unaccounted for. Chloe began to notice the telltale scent of alcohol clinging to his clothes, the faint, cloying sweetness of another woman's perfume. Yet strangely, she felt detached. A numb acceptance settled over her. Her own hope for a child, a family, still flickered. She still harboured the quiet dream of convincing Leo to try IVF. So she swallowed her pride, avoided scenes, and stifled her questions. Leo, once her caring husband, devolved into an embittered, cold egoist, seeing her not as his beloved wife, but merely an object for his sneers and accusations. "IVF? Why would I want those artificial creatures?" he'd roar, his voice laced with disgust whenever Chloe tried to talk to him about it. "Don't you have anything better to do? You sit home all day. You have no use to me. I work like a dog, all by myself." Chloe watched her husband with growing horror. This wasn't the man she'd married. Their marriage was unravelling, thread by painful thread. Yet a fragile hope still clung to her. Maybe he would cool down, come to his senses. But Leo was far from cooling down. He was already deeply entangled in an affair with his young, ambitious secretary, Tiffany. Tiffany, with her sharp ambition and calculating charm, had latched onto the opportunity to ensnare such a prominent man, family status be damned. Children weren't in her plans, which suited her boss perfectly. At this opportune time, a lucrative contract loomed on the horizon. Leo's Velocity Customs had been struggling. His neglect, coupled with his alcoholism, had caused his once stellar reputation to slip. His workshop, once gleaming, was now messy. Key staff had departed, and he was behind on crucial new technologies. He desperately needed a breakthrough project to inject cash and prestige back into his failing business. This potential contract was with a major entrepreneur, the owner of a new highly respected global auction house for rare and collectible luxury cars. The businessman himself reached out to Leo, calling him directly. "They say your shop, Velocity Customs, still has a knack for bringing these classics back to life, or even enhancing them. I'd like to see for myself if you're interested in a partnership for bespoke restoration and performance tuning for my auction pieces and clients' collections." The businessman, Mr. Ryder Evans, proposed. "We could meet at my office, and you could also see our facility. We can discuss everything there." "Why not?" Leo exclaimed, a jolt of his old ambition stirring. He had been actively seeking such a high-profile opportunity, and here it seemed a lifeline was being offered. Mr. Evans sent Leo all the information, including his address and name.
"Leo, darling, maybe you should finally divorce your little housewife,"
Tiffany purred, wrapping her arms around his neck and playfully nipping his earlobe. Leo closed his eyes, purring with pleasure.
"And anyway, send her to negotiate with this automotive mogul, let her botch it, and then you can easily show her the door and fix the situation yourself. You're so smart, so resourceful,"
she'd whispered, her words dripping with manipulative flattery. Leo, completely intoxicated by her praise, lost all semblance of reason. He didn't consider the consequences of such a reckless move. He couldn't think straight any more. So, returning home, he found a pretty excuse to unleash a full-blown argument. "Your husband's home from work," he announced to Chloe, who was meticulously repotting houseplants, her hands elbow-deep in soil. "Maybe you could finally feed me? At least be some use." "Leo, you're the one who wanted me to stay home and not work," Chloe tried to remind him, her voice tinged with weary patience. "And now you're scolding me for it." "Well, now I want you to go to work, though you've probably gone soft, wasting your days at home. Degradation is clear for all to see," he sneered, a cruel glint in his eyes. "But if you don't agree, you can try to prove me wrong. Here's the address and the businessman's name. Go and convince him to sign the contract. I'll bet my head you'll be thrown out in 5 minutes for your stupidity." Chloe was beyond tired of his baseless accusations. She was, ironically, familiar with the specifics of high-end automotive work, having quietly studied it on her own over the years. The topic itself was close to her past life, though she tried desperately not to remember it. "As you wish," she said calmly, a quiet steel in her voice that utterly astonished him. Leo had expected her to argue, to refuse, giving him the perfect excuse to throw her out like a worthless thing. Leo tossed her the meeting information. "Mr. Ryder Evans," Chloe read out, the name sparking a flicker of distant recognition, though she couldn't quite place it. She quickly looked up information about his business, Heritage Auto Works, online. She wanted to be prepared to understand the depth of his reputation for rare and collectible cars, and to get a sense of what Ryder might need from a customization partner. The next day, Leo sat in his office, gleefully celebrating his wife's impending failure with Tiffany, who perched on his desk, her laughter tinkling like broken glass. Chloe, meanwhile, drove out of the city, heading towards the impressive complex that housed Heritage Auto Works. From open sources, she had learned that Ryder Evans had built an empire based on integrity and excellence, a stark contrast to Leo's failing venture. At its heart lay a sprawling, state-of-the-art facility featuring immaculate showrooms, climate-controlled storage for priceless vehicles, and advanced restoration bays. It also included a high-tech auction hall and private viewing rooms where collectors could inspect potential purchases. This all appeared not so long ago, Chloe mused, a shiver running down her spine. Ryder Evans must be compelling to pull something like this off. She walked past gleaming, pristine classic cars, sparkling under the showroom lights, each one a testament to meticulous care and immense wealth. Her heart thrummed with a mixture of apprehension and a strange, almost forbidden excitement. Her memory, treacherous as ever, pulled her back years into the past, to another time filled with adrenaline and fast machines, to a world that felt both dangerously familiar and utterly alien now. Entering the main office building, she began to search for Mr. Evans' private office. Finally, she found the door with the correct nameplate. Chloe knocked, her heart thrumming a nervous rhythm against her ribs. "Come in," a deep voice called from within. She pushed the heavy door open and stepped inside. The office was tastefully appointed, exuding an air of understated power. Ryder Evans stood with his back to her, gazing out a large window at the gleaming classic cars being meticulously prepped in the vast Heritage Auto Works facility. He was surveying his empire, a man at the pinnacle of his domain. "Good morning, Mr. Evans," Chloe began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She took a moment to take in the polished elegance of his office. "I'm here representing Leo Harrison from Velocity Customs. You called my husband, but you'll be dealing with me today." The man at the window slowly turned. The moment stretched, thick with unspoken possibilities. On his face, a kaleidoscope of emotions flickered, too complex to fully capture. First, a flicker of bewilderment, then surprise deepened into profound shock. His brows shot up, and his lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to speak, but the words caught in his throat. "Chloe." Her name ripped from his lips in a ragged whisper, a raw sound of disbelief. It was Brandon. He stared at her, his eyes wide, as if trying to reconcile the woman before him with a ghost from his past. Was she real, or merely a figment of his imagination, a cruel trick of memory? Chloe gasped, freezing for a split second. She even shook her head, a desperate attempt to dispel the hallucination. "No, I imagined it," the thought screamed in her mind. Then she looked at the man by the window again, really looked at him, and recognition, sharp and undeniable, slammed into her. "No!" she cried out. The sound ripped from her. She stumbled backward, her mind reeling, instinctively turning to flee. In a blur, she lunged for the door, but Brandon was faster. He caught her hand, his grip firm, and pulled her back, spinning her to face him. "Chloe," he breathed, slowly sinking to his knees before her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his hands moving over her as if to confirm her solidity. "Chloe." He couldn't form other words. "You scoundrel! You rotten traitor!" Reality crashed over Chloe. She finally found her voice, pounding her fists against his shoulders, his head, his back, tears streaming down her face. Brandon didn't even flinch, simply burying his face against her knees, holding her tightly, as if terrified she would vanish if he let go for even a moment. "How long I've looked for you," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I felt I would find you here." He pulled back just enough to look up at her, his eyes glistening. "Chloe, my Chloe." In that instant, all the years that stood between them dissolved. Her resentment, his fear that she might never forgive him, it all faded into the background. Chloe understood. She had never stopped loving him, merely tried to replace that deep-seated feeling with a pale imitation. "Tell me, how have you lived?" he asked, once the raw emotion had subsided a fraction. "I want to know about every day, every minute of your life." Chloe Recounting her story held nothing back. As she spoke of Leo's transformation, of the years of emptiness, Brandon's fists tightened at his sides. The scoundrel! To blame his own failures on you? That's the height of depravity.
But he's not so different from you, Chloe accused, her voice still raw with accusation, but softer now. At least he didn't disappear.
Chloe, I know. There's no excuse for me.
He sank to his knees before her again, resting his head on her lap.
But let me tell you how I lived.
She remained silent, and he took it as a sign of assent.
That evening when I left, I got a call from a friend in law enforcement.
Brandon began, his voice low.
I'd fixed his bike, and the day before, I asked him to pick it up. He called to say he couldn't make it that day because they were preparing a major sting operation on car thieves. That's when I knew someone had given us up. At the start of the operation, I was still with the guys, but then I slowly slipped away. I needed to find out who the rat was. When the guys got rounded up, I was close by and saw everything. Only Scar wasn't pressed. They calmly put him in a car. The guys had tried to warn me that Scar was untrustworthy, but I didn't believe them. I'd pulled him out of such a hole. He was eating scraps from trash cans, covered in lice like a stray cat. I cleaned him up, fed him, got him a place on our team.
Yes, not everyone appreciates gratitude, Chloe said softly, a sombre understanding in her voice.
You're right, Brandon nodded. I knew if Scar opened his mouth, I wouldn't see freedom for a long time. So I had to disappear. I suspected they'd interrogate you too, but I couldn't risk you knowing my location. If you knew where I was, sooner or later, they would have broken you. And I couldn't, under any circumstances, go to prison. You know, my mother was sick. This way, I could help her by sending money.
And where did you live all this time? What did you do? Chloe asked, her voice barely a whisper.
I started from scratch. I moved far away to a quiet town and got a job at an auto repair shop. I started fixing cars and bikes, then I opened my own service. Slowly, I built myself up. I focused intensely on performance vehicles and classics. Yes, I had to change my name. I told everyone I'd lost all my documents.
And why did you come here? To build Heritage Auto Works?
I was looking for you, Brandon said, lifting his head to meet her gaze, his eyes shining with a profound yearning. You weren't in the city. No one knew where you'd gone. Your parents had completely drunk themselves away. They didn't even remember your name. But I remembered. You wanted to live in a city where bridges rise, where there are many fountains and people don't pay attention to you. This city is the only one like that in the whole world. I drove the streets every day, hoping to see you.
I've changed, Chloe murmured, self-consciously adjusting her newly cut, styled hair.
And I still would have recognized you, Brandon countered, his voice tender. You're even more beautiful now.
He gently traced the line of her cheek with his palm, and Chloe closed her eyes, leaning into his touch.
Will you ever forgive me?
Chloe opened her eyes and looked at him. A flicker of doubt crossed her features, quickly replaced by a profound tenderness. I forgave you the moment I saw you, she sighed, a small genuine smile gracing her lips as she playfully ruffled his hair.
Chloe, marry me. I don't want to lose another minute.
Brandon sprang to his feet, rushed to a sleek, modern safe, pulled something from within and returned. In his outstretched palm lay a small crimson velvet box. Chloe carefully took it, opened it, and gasped. Inside
Nestled on a bed of satin was a ring of extraordinary beauty, a solitaire diamond glistening with 100 promises. "I've carried this with me always. I hoped I'd find you some day," Brandon confessed, his hands trembling with emotion. "Divorce is a matter of days when you have money and connections." And Brandon, or rather Ryder Evans, had both. Chloe didn't even go back to Leo's house for her belongings. She moved directly in with Brandon. Of course, the contract between Velocity Customs and Heritage Auto Works was now out of the question. However, Chloe, thanks to her innate curiosity, sharp mind and resourcefulness, helped Brandon expand Heritage Auto Works even further. She saw opportunities to integrate a bespoke customization division, a new tier of service for their elite clientele. Leo, foolishly believing himself a monopolist in the high-end automotive customization world, had completely miscalculated, gravely underestimating his former wife. He was so convinced his long-standing experience and connections would protect his business. Yet, the new work done by Chloe in a new division at Heritage Auto Works proved to be more technologically advanced, more convenient and more attuned to the evolving desires of luxury car owners. By securing exclusive contracts with major private collections and auction consignments, Chloe and Brandon completely pushed Leo's Velocity Customs out of the upper echelons of the market. "Chloe, this isn't revenge," Brandon assured her, reviewing the latest market reports. "This is simply justice." He chose this path himself. "I know," she murmured, nodding thoughtfully, but her mind was elsewhere. "Brandon," she said, looking up at him, her eyes brimming with tears, "I'm pregnant." He froze for a moment, then grabbed her hands, a bewildered grin spreading across his face. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he did both. "Chloe, you silly goose, why are you crying? This is wonderful. I'm going to be a father." "It's from happiness," she laughed, wiping tears from her cheeks. Meanwhile, Leo sat alone in his Velocity Customs office, staring at the empty shelves of his once bustling parts warehouse. Calls from clients had ceased. His former partners had pulled out of collaborations. "How did this happen?" he whispered, clutching his phone, the silence of his crumbling empire echoing around him.